Welcome to Gozroth Tutorials. I'm Gozroth, and today we're going to continue our Codeblock to TypeScript series with leaderboards. We're going to start off with Codeblocks, and then we're going to work our way to TypeScript. I will show you a side-by-side view of the two scripts. Now, the first things we need to do is we need to create the leaderboard variable and drop in a leaderboard gizmo. So in order to do that, we're going to go up to Systems, click on Leaderboards. We're going to click this plus sign. So this is going to allow us to create a new leaderboard. We need to give it a name. I'm going to call this one Player Points. The sort order, we have descending and ascending. So what descending means is your first place player will have the highest score and everyone below that will have smaller and smaller scores. Ascending is the exact opposite. Your number one player will have the smallest score and then they will get larger as they go down the list. Reset frequency, we have never, daily, weekly, and monthly. So if you want the scores to reset every so often, pick the one that is right for you. Else you can leave it as never, and then it will always continue to accumulate. Now if you do pick daily, weekly, or monthly, you can then select this, which will also reset any player persistent variable you are using for this leaderboard. Now you don't have to use a PPV for leaderboards. You can, and if you are going to do a reset, this allows you to reset both the leaderboard and the PPV at the same time. But we're not going to worry about that. We're going to just set this to never, and we're going to hit create. So now we have this player points leaderboard here. We can delete it or we can edit it, just like we did when we created it, same information. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to close out of this and open up the build menu, and we're going to go to gizmos. Now we're going to find the world leaderboard, and we're just going to drag it in. And we're going to reset the view here, so 0, 0, 0, and I'm going to scale it up to 2. And we're going to move it, so we're going to go over to the move tool, and we're going to hold down control, and then we're just going to move it back and up 1, like that. And we're going to click on World Leaderboard, and we have some things that we want to set. We already moved it and scaled it, but we need to adjust its behavior. We need to set the leaderboard. So we're going to click on the leaderboard here, and it's going to give us a drop down if you have more than one, and you can pick whatever leaderboard you want to display. We're going to select player points, and then we have displayed title, so we can change the title. We're going to call this player points, and we can adjust the number of entities per page. You can have up to 10, and you can have 1. So 1 to 10 is your range. We're going to leave this at 5. The anchor style, you can have static or billboards. What billboard is it's going to follow the player like that. So if you had 3 players, one's over here, one's over there, it's going to face me and them at the same time. But we're going to leave this as static. Now the UI mode, we have light mode and dark mode. So light mode is the white, and then dark mode is the black. Entry display mode, we have raw value and times in second. So raw value is whatever number you give. So you give it 5,000, it's going to display 5,000. If you have time in seconds and you give it 60, it's going to show 1 minute. All right, so now we're going to go into VR. So let me get my headset on. We need to create a script. So we're going to open up the build menu, go to gizmos, and pull out a script. We're just going to name this CB Leaderboards. It's always important to name your script something that makes sense. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this when the player enters the world, just to make it as simple as possible. So we're going to go down to player events, and we're going to find when player enters the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the leaderboard's value. So we're going to go to value, and we're going to go down under values, set world leaderboard score for player. And we're just going to drag that in here. We want to set the player points leaderboard for the player that enters the world. So we're going to change me to player points, and we're going to set it for the player that has entered the world, and we're just going to set their value to 100. And we don't need to set the override. The override, if you're descending and say I have a score of 1,000, but I want to set the score to 100, I will have to set this to true to override my larger score. Now if it was ascending and I wanted to set it to a larger score, then I would have to also override. But since it's descending and I don't have a score, so technically my score is 0. And if I want to give it to 100, since it's larger, I don't have to override. So now we need to attach the script to our leaderboard. It doesn't have to be attached to the leaderboard, it's just this is the only object I have in the world. And we're going to attach our script. However, there is an issue with how leaderboards are updated. They don't update in edit mode. That might not actually be a bug. That might be a design decision, because now you're not getting server calls while you're in edit mode. So I'm actually going to have to come out of the headset, and now we're going to click on these 3 dots here, and we're going to preview in the browser. So hopefully when we load in, now it will display my name with 100. So now it has my name with 100. So and that's all I'm going to show you about Codeblocks. So that's how you set the leaderboards. Now I'm going to show you how to do the exact same thing in TypeScript. Then we're going to build a manager tool for leaderboards. So in order to get this to work in TypeScript, first we're going to click on this and we're going to remove our Codeblocks script. We're going to attach script. We're going to click on new script and we're going to name it TypeScript Leaderboards. And we're going to create that script. Now I'm going to open it in my IDE, and I use Microsoft Visual Studio Community IDE. I don't use Visual Studio Code like a lot of people use, because I do development in things outside of Horizon. So if my IDE looks a little different than yours, that's fine. Just keep in mind that I don't use Visual Studio Code. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and format my document. This just updates the spacing for everything and makes it easier for me. I also do not like importing everything from a library, so I don't do that. I will get rid of all HZs first, and I will just import component for now. And we need to think about what we were doing before we were getting when the player entered the world. So we need to connect to that. And we do our connections in pre-start. So let me get that going. And in order to connect to a Codeblock event, we need to use the connect Codeblock event. So this dot connect Codeblock event. And we need to declare the target. Well, the target is going to be on the object that's holding the script. So it's going to be this dot entity. We need to declare what Codeblock event we want to connect to. So we're going to use Codeblock events with an S. And when I hit dot and I start typing something in, nothing is going to populate. It's because I'm not importing Codeblock events. So I need to copy that and I need to paste that in here so I can import Codeblock events. Now, when I type something, I have a list of player related things and I see on player enter world. So now I need to get the data that's coming, and the data that's being sent with on player enter world is a player variable. So if I put in a bracket here, and I'm just going to call it P, and then I'm going to declare it as a type player. So the reason we have this error is because it's not imported. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to import it quick. Now I can say I want it to call an event. So we're going to have it call this dot, and I'm just going to take on player enter world, and we're just going to send that. And we're going to want that player variable. So we're going to require the P from player. And we're going to end our line here. But we're getting an error because this doesn't actually exist. So I need to create that. And now this error goes away, but I have an error here because I'm not actually requesting that. So I need to now request the player as well. And now all my errors are gone. And when the player enters the world, this will fire. Currently, we are not doing anything. We want to set the leaderboard's value for the player. So in order to do that, we need to go this.world.leaderboards.set score for player. And it's going to require a couple things. It's going to require the leaderboard name, the player, the score, and the override, just like in Codeblocks. So the leaderboard name was player points. The player will be the player that we're sending, so P. The score, we'll do 500 this time. And the override is going to be false because 500 is greater than 100, so I don't need to override that. So now if I end my line and I hit save, we can go back into preview I'm going to change it to time in seconds, just so you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to make sure it all saved. It's still thinking, and now it's saved. So we're going to go back into our browser, and we're going to see if it updates to 500 seconds. Okay, so now when we get close here, we can see that it didn't in fact update, and now it says it's 8 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm going to show you a side-by-side between the Codeblocks and the TypeScript. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to my scripts, click on my Codeblock script, and create or spawn a new gizmo. Click on that gizmo and I can open the viewer. Now here we have the Codeblock script. We have when world is entered by player, and we have the TypeScript down here. And we can see side by side, when world is entered by player, we have on player enter world. But the difference is I don't have to connect to that event in Codeblocks. It's all happening in the back end for you already. So we have to do that here. So under pre-start, we're connecting to the on player enter world event, and we're sending that to on player enter world. And then in our on player enter world, we're doing this.world.leaderboards that set score player. So this right here is the act of dragging this code block into the script. So when you drag this code block into the script, it's like this is here, but all these values are null. So we have to adjust these values. So when we change this, we're changing this. When we drag this player in, we're setting the player variable. When we change this number variable, we're setting the number variable here. And when we toggle this on or off, we're changing this from false to true, or true to false. The leaderboard, Codeblocks, and the TypeScript, they're very similar. It just takes a little bit getting used to having to connect those code blocks. But the actual action, the actual setting of the value is very similar. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to create a manager of sorts that will allow the player to send the leaderboard data either from Codeblocks or from TypeScript. And we're going to then take that and update the leaderboard in one event. So we're going to come back over to our TypeScript. We need to connect from a Codeblock script. Now I'll show you how to do this. So very similar to how we were connecting for the on-player enter, but we're going to still use this.connect Codeblock event, and we're still going to check for this.entity. We're going to use the new keyword because we're creating a new Codeblock event. So Codeblock event, and we have to declare like the variable types that are coming in. So we're going to do that with that, and I'm going to close off my bracket so I don't forget. And there are 4 variables that we need. There's a string, a player, a number, and a boolean. So we need to define those. So we can go, so leaderboard name, and that's of type string. Make sure it's a lowercase s. And we can have P for player, score for number, and override for boolean. And those are the variables that we expect to receive from this event. What's the name of the event that should be received? So like when you send an event to another script in Codeblocks, you have to send a name with it, and that's the name we're expecting. So it doesn't have to match this, but for simplicity, we're going to have it match that. So then we have to declare the prop types. So we're going to use this bracket, and it's prop types. And you might get an error for that because we didn't import it, but sometimes it'll update by itself. But it doesn't always do this, so just be mindful that you might have to do that. And we have to do it for all the different types. So we have a string, we have a prop types for a player, and they do have to be in the same order. We have a prop types for a number, and we have a prop types for a boolean. Let me just scroll over so you can see that. Okay, and we're going to close out that. Now we're starting to create the callback, and this requires the variables for the callback. Now we have to do the exact same thing that we did here. open bracket, drop those in, close bracket, and then we can tell it that we're going to send this information to this.set leaderboard, which I haven't created yet, but we will, and we need to send in the variables. So it's kind of like this, but we don't need the types. So it'll be leaderboard name, P, score, and override. Now we're going to need another close bracket, and then we want to close our line. Now this is going to error off because this doesn't exist. So we need to create that. We're going to go down here. We're going to create that. Now we need to request those variables because we're sending them here. Now we need to request it. And it's going to be in this format because we need to declare their types when we do it here. I put in the wrong name here. And I see why we have some errors here. And that's because I used the uppercase number instead of the lowercase number. We got to make sure we're using the proper data types. That's my fault there. And just make sure we have them right down here as well. Okay. So now when we get this event, the set leaderboard event, we kind of want to do the exact same thing we did here. So we're just going to paste that there, and we'll replace these values with the values being sent to the event. We can get rid of this because now when the player enters a world, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate a Codeblock event being sent. So in order to simulate sending this Codeblock event, what we're going to do is we're going to go this.send Codeblock event, and this is going to be to the object that's receiving it, and since it's this.entity, we'll use that. And then again, it's a new one, so we're going to use new. It's a Codeblock event, so no S. So then we need to declare the variable types. So just like we did before, close out that bracket, and I'm just going to copy and paste that there. And now we have to declare the name of the event that's going to receive it. So it's going to be the set leaderboard. So we can go open bracket, set leaderboard, and then we have to declare the prop types. I'm just going to grab this, paste it there, close that off. But now we have to say what those values are. So what is the string? And in this case, it's going to be player points. The player is going to be the player being sent. So player, nope, we want, not that we want P, so it's going to be P. Our score could be, let's go 150, and then this is going to be true. And the reason it's true is because currently our score is 500. So we want it to be a lower, I have to override it because we have our leaderboard set to descending. So I have to override whatever value is there. And then we're going to end our line. So this will now call this, and it should update our score. So if I hit save, wait for it to finish saving. Okay, I'm going to go into the browser version, and it should update our score to 150, but it's still in time and seconds, so that's what, minute and 50 seconds, I think? No, 150, that would be 2.5 minutes. If we wait for it to update, 2.5. So that is working. We can close out of that. We can go back into our TypeScript, but this time I'm going to change it back to raw value. And we're going to go back into our script here, and we're going to do the same thing, but this time it's going to be coming from a TypeScript script. So this is, instead of using Codeblock events, it's going to be a network event. So it'll be this.connect network event, this.entity, and we're going to use the new again, but this time it's going to be a new network event. So network event. And if we look, it did add it, so we're good. And we need to declare the variables, and then we're going to use a curly bracket instead of the square bracket, and we need to do the same thing we did up here. So we're just going to copy that, and we're going to paste it in there. And we're going to close off, and we're going to send it to that event. So set leaderboard. Network events don't require the prop types, only the Codeblock events require the prop types. However, we do still need to declare the variables, but we don't need to give it the types. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go open bracket, curly bracket, and then we can just go leaderboard, leaderboard name, P, score, and Then we will then send that information and say, hey, you need to call this event. So what we're going to do is we're going to steal it from up here, and we're going to paste it right there. Going over it, I've missed a bracket here, and now we have to do the send. So I'm going to comment that one out, and we're going to send it via a network event to simulate it coming from a different script. So this dot send network event, this type entity, because that's the entity it's going to. It's a new network event, just like before, and we have to declare the variables. So let me add that. And just like before, we're going to have to use variable and type. We paste those in there, and we need to give it a name. So we're going to copy that, and we'll go like that, and we're going to do that, comma, and now we need the variables. So we're going to use the name, and then we're going to give it a value. So we're just going to, from curly bracket to curly bracket, and so the name is going to be player points. P will be the player, so P. Score will be, let's go with 450, and then the override does not have to be true because 450 is greater than before. We're going to be connecting with the network event, and we're sending a network event, and then that should update our leaderboard. I spelled points wrong. Now when I go into, and give it a second, there it is, 450. And that is all I have for leaderboards. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the video, or if you have suggestions for a future video, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you liked the video, if you learned something, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're notified of all my future videos. And yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good one.